The United States spent $11.3 billion in just 6 days. That's $116 million every single hour. But this isn't really a war story. It's a money story. 5 private companies collected most of it, and their stocks jumped the same day operations began. So who approved this? And where did every dollar actually go?
Okay, we need to talk about a number, a truly staggering figure from modern military spending that's almost hard to believe. So, let's follow the money.
$11.3 billion. That's the bill for just the initial part of the U.S. military operations in Iraq.
And here's the part that's just wild. That colossal amount of money, it was spent in just 6 days.
But it's when you break it down that the number gets really mind-bending. We're talking about $116 million
Every single hour. Can you even imagine? For 6 straight days. The sheer scale of this spending is just on another level.
Okay, for a little perspective, think about this. NASA's budget for an entire year is around $25 billion. This one military operation burned through almost half of that in less than a week.
So this begs the really important question, one that a lot of people aren't asking. Where did all that cash actually, go?
All right, let's follow the money trail. Because this isn't money that's just sitting in some Pentagon vault. No, it flows directly to private companies, the big defense contractors who build all the gear the military uses.
So the main players here are what's known in the industry as the Big Five. You've got Raytheon. They make the Tomahawk cruise missiles. Then there's the Lockheed Martin, building the F-35s and that super important THAAD missile defense system. And routing it out, you have Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics, making everything from stealth bombers to the subs that launch the missiles.
And the price tags on this stuff? Whoa. Every single Tomahawk missile launched, that's $2.2 million straight to Raytheon. Each THAAD interceptor fired, that's a cool $12.7 million for Lockheed. And just flying a B-2 stealth bomber costs over $130,000 an hour. And just to be crystal clear, these aren't guesstimates. These are the actual verified contract prices.
Okay, now we get to the math that is really making defense analysts' heads spin. Look at this, an Iranian Shahed drone. It costs about $20,000 to make. The American THAAD interceptor we use to shoot it down, $12.7 million. That, my friends, is a cost ratio of 635 to 1. Let that sink in. For every single dollar Iran spends on an attack drone, the U.S. has to spend $635 just to defend against it. It's an absolutely staggering financial imbalance, and it's the reality of modern warfare.
And hey, we haven't even talked about the base operating costs yet. The 2 aircraft carrier strike groups parked in the region, just to have them there, costs a combined $13 million a day. And that's before a single shot is even fired.
So, as you can probably guess, this level of spending is setting off some serious alarm bells back in Washington for analysts and lawmakers alike. People are getting worried, and for a few very specific reasons.
Yeah, it really boils down to 3 big areas of concern. First, stockpile depletion. Are we basically using up our ammo faster than we can make it? Second, congressional oversight. Like, who actually approved all this spending? And third, historical precedent. I mean, have we seen this kind of runaway spending before? Spoiler alert, yes we have.
Let's start with the stockpiles, because this is a huge one. The Pentagon can only produce so many of these high-tech interceptors a year. Well, reports are now suggesting that in just the first phase of this conflict, the U.S. burned through the equivalent of 3 full years' worth of THAAD interceptor production.
Yeah, you heard that right. 3 years of production just gone in less than a month. These things are incredibly complex weapons. Their supply chains take years to get going. You can't just flip a switch and crank out more. This burn rate is just not sustainable, and it raises some really scary questions about our readiness for any other potential conflict.
The second big worry is oversight. Right now, Congress hasn't actually formally authorized or set aside money for these specific operations. The funds are being pulled from existing budgets, and according to one senior senator, the real cost is already significantly above the $11.3 billion figure we've all heard. Without a formal vote, there's way less public accountability and a much bigger risk of these costs just spiraling completely out of control.
And that brings us to the third concern: history. Let's just take the Iraq War as an example.
The initial projection was that it would cost around $60 billion. The final, actual cost? Closer to $3 trillion. History has a pretty clear track record of showing us that initial war cost projections can be, well, tragically wrong.
So, okay, we've talked about billions and trillions. What does any of this have to do with you? How does this massive spending ripple through the economy and eventually hit your own budget?
Right. This is the question that brings it all home. How does spending on this insane scale, thousands of miles away, actually impact your wallet?
Well, the answer is a concept economists call economic spillover. Basically, it's all the indirect costs, disruptions to supply chains, chaos in the energy markets, that eventually trickle down and mean higher prices for all of us.
And this isn't some abstract theory. We're already seeing it happen. In just 1 week after the operation started, the national average for a gallon of gas jumped by 27 cents.
And to put that into perspective, that was the single fastest weekly price hike for fuel since the invasion of Ukraine back in 2022. So these are not just numbers on a screen, they are real costs showing up at the pump. And eventually they hit your grocery bill and your heating bill. Because when fuel costs more, it costs more to get literally everything to your local store.
And all of this leaves us with one last really critical question to think about. With our weapons stockpiles getting dangerously low, costs spiraling way beyond what we've been told, and the economic pain already being felt at home, you have to ask, at what point does the cost of a war abroad become completely unsustainable for the economy right here at home?